Hello and welcome to episode 7 of UK NBA. This is part 2, and now we're going to be looking at what's been a tough week for the Grizzlies.
It is difficult to put your finger on it exactly, but at the tail end of part 1 we mentioned how they've dropped from first position to fourth position, which is quite a radical drop in the space of a week. It's difficult to actually say what's gone wrong, but defensively has been a bit shambolic.
Yeah, it hasn't been very good at the moment. 2 defeats in the week, 1 win at the weekend, so that's kind of put them a little bit back on track. But ultimately, 2 defeats against the Houston Rockets and San Antonio Spurs. Really, in a way, there's nothing to be
ashamed of.
With that. But when it comes to the playoffs, you've got to be beating these teams, and you can't be losing to the likes of Spurs and Houston at home.
Not if you have aspirations for reaching the playoffs or even winning the conference.
No, and Spurs have been a bit of a bogey team for the Grizzlies the last few years. We saw them 2 years ago in the old finals in the Western Conference, and they won that 4-0 the Spurs. So they don't want to be in that same position next season. But they've got to get back on track ultimately. They have to do that. They've got to get back to the winning ways, because you can't have such a great start and then just
fall away. And they need to do that by returning to some of the things that they did when they were successful in the early stage of the season. They built a foundation of a tight defensive unit, and then an attacking-minded outlet from point guard to shooter that really earned them a lot of points. But at the minute, they're going through a difficult patch, and we're just looking who they've got next.
Yeah, they've got the Mavericks next.
That's not easy at all. That's a difficult game which could go either way.
Yeah.
Normally, I would say that is a Grizzly win.
Yeah.
But at the moment,
it could be anything.
It could be anything, and I think it'll be a tight game, whichever way. But I still expect them to. I think with that win at the weekend, I think maybe they've put their bad form behind them now, and they can go back to doing what they did best at the start of the season.
Yeah, if they can get a win now, they can certainly get a win on Friday against very poor, as we said earlier, Charlotte Hornets.
I'd be very surprised if they lost that game.
And then they're going into Philly, the inevitable.
Which they should win that as well.
Yeah, but Philly obviously have found a little bit of form with 2 wins last week, and that will be it for their week. But as I say, just looking at that, they got start of the season, they were very good. Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph were fantastic. They were constantly, weren't they, in Team of the Week?
Well, we mentioned that pretty much all of their squad was into. I think their coach won Coach of the Week a couple of times. So really, it's one of those things. I believe it's what makes this sport so great, because 1 minute you're riding high at the top of the table, the next you're languishing in 4th, 5th, 6th place. It can turn around so easily.
Very easily, and we've seen that now in the West. They've dropped all the way down to 4th. They looked invincible at one point, but they can get back to that form, I do believe. They've got the right players, the right attitude. You just got to see that production again from Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph. You've got to see Michael Conley making more plays for those guys, etc. And you got to see the return of form for like Courtney Lee, other bench players like Vince Carter have got to start really producing, and they can soon be back on track. I think they can do that, and hopefully next week we'll be talking about the Grizzlies potentially going 3-0 in their week and getting themselves back onto some sort of winning streak.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for that. So join us for part 3, where we'll look at another team, this time in the Eastern Conference, and that's the Atlanta Hawks on part 3.